All right. I think we'll get started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for spending the next 90 minutes of your day today with Innovate at UCLA. My name's Erica Knowlton-Young, and I'm the programming chair for Innovate at UCLA, and I'll also be our moderator today. We are recording today's event. We are getting in the habit of recording so that we can post our content on the Innovate at UCLA website and start to have a rich library of content that's available to all of our members and to those who are getting to know our organization. So I hope you enjoy the show. And if there's anybody that you have in your organization who really wanted to be here today and couldn't make it, we will have a recorded version of this. So my name's Erica, and I am a senior manager at Slalom Consulting in the Global Strategy Organization. And one of the things that I focus a lot of my time talking about is the future of video. In fact, right now I'm working on a perspective that I'll be touring around the market really soon on the future of video. And right now my thesis is I believe that video is going to swallow the world. In fact, I think it'll be as important to us as fonts one day. And we're starting to see some really exciting trends in this space. And we see this every day. You wake up and you have this thing called your cell phone that has a screen on it. And maybe you wear a screen on your wrist, and maybe you have a screen in your car, and there's screens in your kitchen and in your living room. And we work on screens all day long. So truly, video is already beginning to swallow the world today. And the thing that's really exciting about video is that our brains can process images 60,000 times faster than we can process text. So what a great solution for handling the fact that today there's more text coming at us and more text that we want to consume than we possibly can in a given day. So today I'm really excited to introduce you to three amazing leaders from different parts of the technology and media world who all have perspectives on how video is taking over the world and how soon it's happening, how fast it's happening, what the challenges and hurdles are from a business and technology perspective. So we have today with us Jen Whalen, who is the VP of Business to Business Marketing at Verizon Media, Sherry Park, the Senior Director of Marketing at Qualcomm, and Adam Moore, a Director of Global Digital Systems and Engineering at Sony Pictures. I'd like to have each one of you take a moment to introduce yourself and maybe provide a little bit of background about who you are, what you do at your organization, and then we'll dive into questions. And just for everyone here, do feel free to ask questions as we go today. I'll try and pause occasionally in case anyone wants to interject with a question. We'll also keep an eye on the chat feed. If there are questions that pop up, I'll make best attempt to squeeze in as many questions as we can today. We'd love for this to be fun and interactive. All you have to do is unmute yourself if you have a question. You can also use the raise hand function at the bottom of the screen. Jen, I'll pass the baton to you for a quick intro.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erica. And thanks for the invitation. I'm very excited to be here today. And as Erica mentioned, I lead marketing for Verizon Media, which is one of the three business units of Verizon. And a lot of times people will hear the word Verizon and they think immediately handsets or 5G. And those things are very important in our bigger ecosystem, but Verizon Media, the business unit that I lead marketing for, really is the ad tech portion of that. And not only is it ad tech, but it also has publications. So over the course of the last 3 to 5 to maybe 7 years, Verizon has purchased all of the Yahoo properties, all the AOL properties, publications like TechCrunch and Engadget, and they've created they collected a bunch of technology. And at one point they had like 8 digital side, demand side platforms and a bunch of SSPs on the supply side and some exchange in the middle. And so they took all this technology and they really simplified it down to what is the best way that advertisers can meet people that are trying to see content. So it's a lot of advertising and media. And really, how does technology and content come together to be at the service of consumers? And I was even shocked when I started working there to find out that 900 million people look at the Verizon Media content every month. So there's a lot of logged in users. There's a lot of kind of active users that are looking at Yahoo Sports and their mail from Yahoo. People still do have that Yahoo email address, even if they won't admit it. And so all of that first party data is awesome from an advertising perspective from personalization and contextual relevance. So I have to figure out how to match all of those people together to make the best user experience and the best engagement possible. So I've been in tech my entire career for 25 plus years, and I'm not a technical person. So I love taking technology and turning it into kind of non-geek speak. So I will do my best with any questions you throw my way, but I'm really happy to be here today.
Thank you, Jen. Sherry, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me, Erica, to be part of this panel. It's great to be here with Jen and Adam. I am a double Bruin. So I went to UCLA for my undergrad and then went to Anderson for my MBA. So yes, I am still feeling that glow from the Final Four. It was a good past couple of weeks for all of us. So I'm the head of digital engagement for our global marketing organization at Qualcomm, and I lead our digital marketing, digital experience, and operations teams. So we're accountable for the holistic experience across all of our digital touchpoints that our customers and audiences have along their journey with Qualcomm. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Qualcomm, Qualcomm is the world's leading wireless technology innovator and the driving force behind the development, launch, and expansion of 5G, which is our next generation of wireless technology. So as you may guess, when it comes to video, my perspective is going to come from how there is just this ever-growing expectation around mobile experiences and how important wireless connectivity is to those experiences. So great to be here.
Thank you, Sherry. And Adam.
Thanks, Erica. Thanks, Sherry and Jen. And thanks, UCLA, for having me. As you might have guessed from the accent, I did not graduate from UCLA. So I moved over to LA about 3 years ago to lead a team of engineers building streaming platforms for Sony Pictures at the time. And I've recently moved into a new role looking after Sony's basically video-enabled sites. So Sony has a global portfolio of television properties, free ad-supported channels that are growing and expanding. So I'm responsible for the back-end systems and technical partnerships that we have, which power those video-enabled sites and video-enabled experiences for Sony Pictures Television.
Thank you, Adam. So I'm going to start with a pretty easy question. I started my career early on at Disney and ESPN. In a very short amount of time, got to see just how fast video was evolving. In fact, it was the thing that made the media, entertainment, and telecommunications space so interesting and exciting to me. And it's still why I love the space today. And in another short leap of time, we've seen video evolve even more. How have you seen video evolve? And not just video, but the technologies that enable video to get to all the endpoints that we interact with it through all the time?
Would you like me to take that one to start with? I'll start with that one as I'm off mute. So, I mean, we'll touch on the technology a little bit more as we get further into this. But for me, I think one of the biggest evolutions of the last probably decade or so is just how accessible video has become. And not accessibility necessarily in the sense of accessible services, but accessible in terms of how an individual with a smartphone and a YouTube account can now garner millions of followers and generate a multi-million-dollar business, just with the power of their everyday smartphone. Through the quality of the camera, the improvements in the quality of the cameras and sensors within those devices, and the ease of being able to get that video in front of viewers. I did a quick bit of research. I thought I'd look up who's the highest earner on YouTube. I had some ideas in my head, and I had no idea that it was a 9-year-old boy who earned $29 million in 2019 with Ryan's World, if you want to go and look at unboxing videos. So that for me, I think has probably been one of the biggest evolutions that I've seen.
If anyone's wondering if there's a way to make more money, YouTube, baby.
Yeah, I mean, just to add what Adam was saying, I saw a stat the other day, video traffic or video traffic is going to grow at a pace at about 30% annually until 2026. And at that time, it should account for 77% of mobile data traffic. So people, all the traffic that's going on via mobile devices, 77% of that is going to be video. And I think it's about 60% in 2019. And so what you're also seeing is that social traffic is actually declining. So video is just going to continue to grow. And another stat that I saw was that live video usage is going to grow as well, about 15 times its current pace by 2022. So this is what we have to keep in mind as the demand and expectations for these positive experiences, mobile experiences. And that means fast, instant, no latency, high definition, right? I had actually seen a non-HD, non-Blu-ray DVD the other day. My goodness, I could barely watch it. And so the expectations are really, really high, and they're just going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I love what Sherry's saying about the latency, because if you're talking about live sports and latency, nobody wants to be on a live experience with friends. And there's actually a very cool product called Watch Together, where you can actually be on your mobile device and through Yahoo Sports be watching a game together with 4 or 5 friends. And there's trash talking involved. But I'm telling you, if one person sees a touchdown before the other person and ruins it for them, that is completely unacceptable. And so that 5G kind of no latency experience is so, so critical. And I think back on how fast this has changed and how, literally between April and May of last year, it was like exponential, like 60% growth in live streaming viewing. And it was just, and then over the course of the year was another 100%. It was just what happened in 2020 was 5 to 7 years in advance of what should have happened. And so there are positive things. I think back on my career, and I started off making 60-second TV ads. And it took us months to get one 60-second spot. And it was epic. And it was meant to run on, prime time, like Monday Night Football. I want my spot to air in 60 seconds. Who waits around for 60 seconds? Now it's 6-second intervals of content consumption. And it was so expensive. Like TV was where the big money was, not only from a production, but also media. And now it's there, the constraints have come off of video. You don't have to produce this epic 60-second spot. The 9-year-old on YouTube is making more money than I think I was earlier in my career, and certainly didn't have all of the hoopla around it. So I think scale is the #1 thing that I've seen impact video in such a positive way. And also personalization. So I think of like, how do I get to the right people? There's so much content out there, and video being so engaging. There's more video than I can even consume in a day. And how do I make sure that I'm reaching people with the stuff they want to see? I don't want to see every video. I want to see the video that's meaningful to me. And so I would love us to think scale and personalization when we're thinking of that evolution of video.
Love that. And Jen, I remember chatting with a couple of people at Verizon Media about Watch Together, and that's a really new and different kind of experience. Can you share with the group about what that's about, and how have we seen people's desire for this type of experience change over time?
Yeah, it's twofold. The product was already in development prior to COVID, but when we all were having to stay at home and not being able to get together for Super Bowl parties and not being able to be together physically, it just exponentially took off. And it's a way to connect people. And so you can, instead of just watching the game by yourself on your device, you can actually engage with, I believe it's 4 or 5 friends. I think you make the 5th, but you see all the little boxes on your screen, and you can see everybody like cheering and trash talking and enjoying the game together, even if you can't physically be together. And you can communicate within your devices. Now, obviously it was a new product in 2020, and they're talking about how do you make that. I said, I have more than 4 friends, and so that's the feedback I gave to the product team. And they're like, we hear you, Jen, we're on it. So they're talking about expanding that to being more people. And then also Watch Together from a sports perspective isn't the only thing. How much does your brain expand to cooking together, there's all sorts of things. I'm a big sports fan, so I'm like, what else is there besides sports? But I guarantee you there's probably other things out there. So even people having, like, think of the old Tupperware party where people would get together and either buy product or do beauty consultations. And if you can create that environment on a device so that people can be in different locations and you can engage with people in different states and different time zones, you really start to bring connection to people that wasn't there before.
Yeah, I love that. The big one I've been exploring is exercise together. And gosh, the number of people in that industry space that have had to figure out how to use video during this time to stay connected with consumers has just been fascinating to watch. No one's created the ultimate solution for it yet. So I hope somebody gets on that soon. If you need a startup business, I have a good idea for you.
Well, Erica, it's kind of funny. My sister's a personal trainer, and so she has been doing Zoom classes, right? Zoom group classes, and she uses Watch Together so that they can use the same playlist for the workouts. So it's just kind of interesting how all these different applications are being used to create a really positive experience for people and to stay connected and stay together.
Yeah, it seems like there's such a huge opportunity to integrate all of those capabilities, right? And actually, I'm curious, Adam, you've seen a bunch of iterations of these video platforms over time that you've worked on, and you've seen what capabilities have come in and out. Can you talk to us about how the video experience is evolving and what sort of new capabilities you've seen added or changed over time?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did forget an important caveat at the start that these are my own views as well, and not the views of my employer, of Sony. So I just want to make that very clear. But
a disclaimer.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a note on the side. Must do disclaimer. I mean, I started in broadcast 20 years ago now, and automation was hardware based, and a digital archive was sort of digibeta tapes on a shelf. So you had to go down to a disused underground station and sort of extract them and put them on a cart. So probably, I mean, with regards to the on-demand platforms, I think the biggest, or two of the biggest evolutions, I'd say, would be the quality of video that we can deliver within any given bit rate now. So if you look, go back 15, 20 years, maybe not even that long, but 15 years, the quality of video that you could deliver within 4 megabits versus the quality that you can deliver now within that same 4 megabits is remarkably different. And obviously that has come with some additional encoding complexity, but it really has been one of the single biggest changes that I've witnessed. And I think one of the biggest positive changes that the end user has seen as well. And the second of those 2 points that I think has really been a huge sort of step forward or evolution for the industry is the advent of cloud computing, and certainly the recent broader adoption of cloud technologies and cloud computing technologies. They've, drastically lowered the barrier to entry for creating a media technology company or a media technology service. I was part of a team that built the first fully cloud-based content supply chain solution for a major studio back in 2013. And I look at the partners that we worked with and the technologies that we had to create and adopt to make that successful. And we used the largest cloud provider. So you could all guess who that is at the time. And for us, it was a fundamental shift and a significant enabler. But we had to really work at creating some technologies that didn't exist and working with partners to grow and modify solutions that existed. Whereas today, what we spent 18 months building, there is a template that with a one button click, I can deploy all of those services, and I can have a media insights framework, if you want to Google that and find the particular template that I'm talking about. But with that one-click deploy, I get transcription services, machine learning, object recognition, content storage, user interface, and asset management, or very basic sort of asset management. And that for me is astounding. And I think that's probably one of the single biggest evolutions and enablers for people wanting to start new media businesses and take some of that content they're creating and find a niche and start a new business around that.
So smart. I couldn't agree more. I think it is that kind of creativity meeting entrepreneurship that's going to skyrocket. And I saw a question from Jim in the chat around immersive, and I absolutely, 1000% yes. What we're seeing right now is commerce meeting AR. So how do you explore that shoppable AR experience, whether that's in, like, if you think of the consumer going into their Yahoo mailbox, and all of a sudden you can actually shop straight from mail, or you can shop straight from experiences that you're already in. So the content changes, the experience for the consumer changes, the purchase path changes. So I think AR is going to have a huge impact on how, and video will only augment that and make it happen faster. So there's some really cool stuff happening out there. Verizon Media actually has these really cool 5G labs all over the world, and people can go into those 5G labs and create some of those AR experiences, and then we feed that straight into the other products. So there's a lot of really cool, innovative things that are happening, and I think it's lots of things happening, lots of test cases, and then occasionally one will just explode. And I think we're seeing that happening. We're seeing it happen faster and faster.
Yeah, Jen, at your organization, you hear a ton about what other organizations are wanting to do with video. And I know there's this constant conversation about what do we think about building into what we can offer next in terms of streaming video or CDN or security. What are some of the big things that people talk about a lot today that are kind of new and interesting to everybody?
I think fast. I think the latency, shutting down latency, getting content from point A to point B in the highest quality with the lowest speed, and letting people consume across that omni-channel experience or the omni-product experience. So not like, hey, this works awesome on your laptop, but no, it works on any, whether it's a screen that you see at a gas station or your phone or your laptop or all of the screens you listed at the beginning of the day or at the beginning of the call. We engage with those throughout the day, and being able to have that be seamless for consumers is really, I think, the direction that we're going. People don't want to have only one experience on their laptop and then a different experience. They want that to kind of weave all the way through. So I think it truly comes down to content and the experience that the consumer has with it in any place at any time.
Sherry, and sort of the same question for you. I was spending some time on the Qualcomm website, and there's just so much that your organization offers, from automotive to cameras, industrial, commercial, mobile computing, smartphones, and more, that all are technologies and industries that make me think about all the video opportunities. What are some of the video-based experiences and interactions that your organization is imagining today and getting a lot of questions and interest about? And how are you thinking about enabling those with the technologies that you create?
Yeah. I think the answer is that every conversation that we're having, video has some sort of component. Video is part of that experience. And it's not just video, but it's this full connected immersive experience. Go back to Jim's question. So the asks or the conversations around 3D video, around 8K 360-degree videos, right? Because we want to have this immersive experience that actually feels real. And we're also talking about video streaming on multiple displays, which becomes particularly relevant, let's say, for a smart auto, right? A smart automobile where cameras and video are a huge safety component, as you're driving, right? photography, simultaneous video and photo capture, right? Once again, in these high quality Dolby Vision video or 8K or 4K video, along with 64 megapixel, photos, all of that. And then you can also couple that with the expectation around audio as well. So not just video, but audio. I was talking to some gamers the other day, and in competitive gaming, it becomes really, really important for them to hear audio, auditory cues, like footsteps coming up behind you. So, there's not only a huge demand for high definition video, but also high fidelity sound, not just in the gaming environment, but for video conferencing, and that synchronization across video and audio is so important. So definitely video is a big part of every conversation that we're having.
I've got sort of a broad question for all three of you. What are some of the hardest technological or business challenges that the industry is working through today to enable that next generation of video experience?
Who wants to take that one? I was going to stay on mute.
I vote for Adam.
Okay. I mean, we touched on it a little bit earlier with both encoding complexity or encoding efficiency and latencycy um, all of these experiences that we're talking about, the growth that we're talking about, and the growth that is inevitable, they all require bandwidth. So we can address that in a number of ways, whether that's with the advent of the next generation of mobile connectivity technology. I won't necessarily say 6G because I'm still struggling to get 5G to work on my iPhone. But hey, but no. So whether it is that 6G, Wi-Fi 6, there's I think that is going to be the really significant, or the most significant challenge is enabling the bandwidth to support all of these experiences, and where exactly in the chain we address that.
It's such a beautiful tee up to bring it back to Sherry and Jen, since both of your organizations are playing a really critical role in bringing 5G to market. I'd love to have you talk about what you're seeing on the 5G development front and what it means for the future of video. And if you could also talk a little bit about this idea of 6G. And yesterday I saw the NCTC and Cable Labs were talking about 10G. What is the story about the next iteration of bandwidth that will be available to power our world?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that I don't know if we need to look too far. 5G is here. We have, it's in, 2019, we have commercial networks available. And so I don't know if it's necessarily something that we have to think about in the future. I do think that, as we think about, as, networks get rolled out, as people have more devices available, I think that there's a huge opportunity. Just kind of in general, I would say that, I would say that the challenge may be more around, ensuring that we have the content, we have good content, we have, all of these different pieces, and then the devices that allow people to consume that content. So, I don't know if it's necessarily a challenge. I think that it's a good opportunity, for all of us to really think about how we may be able to apply this new world in which, we do have this opportunity to have this fabric of connectivity, and how do we apply that to all of our industries? I would say that there's a huge opportunity right now versus a challenge.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's an opportunity for collaboration. We talk about all of the parts that are out there and how complex it is. And in reality, so many different organizations are involved and have expertise. Nobody, no matter how big of the big guys we talk about, nobody has it all. Nobody is an expert top to bottom. It's, in my opinion, it's going to be about collaboration across companies. It's going to be like, hey, the three of us are doing pieces of 5G really, really well. Let's put our thinking together. Let's partner on this technology coming to life on your screen, or this technology coming to life with your piece of content. So I think we've talked in the past, even earlier in my career, it was about collaboration across departments within your organization. And now I think there is truly the opportunity to take the step and collaborate within the industry. And sometimes it's frenemies. Sometimes you are partnering with somebody on a project that yesterday you were in competition with them, and tomorrow you're going to be in competition with them, and that's okay. I think Qualcomm is one of those companies that truly leads from an innovation standpoint and brings a piece of innovation to the market and then says, please run with it. Please, everybody springboard off of it. So they're probably a really good role model as far as teaching the rest of the world how to collaborate with each other. And I think that's the big opportunity to help the ball go kind of faster.
And I'm going to Venmo Jen some benefit there for her. Thank you.
I'm going to take a quick detour from 5G and the technology that powers video and ask a fun question in the chat feed here from Sean Birch about how to manage unauthorized deep fake videos. And in fact, I've been spending a bunch of time reading up on this as well. I'm currently working on a project that's pretty deeply rooted in the world of advertising in the future of how we produce ads, and thinking about how edits work and how commercial performers play a role in that space. Deepfakes certainly change a lot. Jen, I know your organization spends a lot of time talking about the production of ads and how they go to market. Do deepfakes come up for you yet?
We have a whole, we do have a whole department, and we take it very serious. It's not something that I have a lot of visibility into. But, you know, I think that there's everything from authenticity to privacy to deep fakes. It's something for us to be concerned about. I think it doesn't touch, you know, I'm fortunate enough that we don't have to worry about it because we have another department that handles that. And so I can't speak to it in specificity, but I do know that our brand really has leaned on trust and innovation. And once that is broken, it's very, very difficult to get back, especially when, you know, we talk about, I call it Big Verizon, and they've got a handset division, and people, it's rare that you find something more meaningful to somebody than their phone. And so you really want to make sure that there is a lot of concern and protection around all things privacy related. So I think it's a broad category, and I unfortunately, I can't speak to it with any more specificity, but we have an entire team dedicated to paying attention there.
I'm going to throw in a bit of a curveball question related to this. I know one of our members and leaders who's engaged with us a whole bunch in the past, Eric Iverson, who works on the media and entertainment team at Amazon, published an article last summer about how companies were using body scanners to capture the likeness of celebrities and to be able to represent them in ads and shows and live events. It's a thing that comes up a lot in my conversations today. Do you have a perspective on that? Is this a thing that you think is going to be hot and pervasive anytime soon, or is that a pretty far in the future idea?
So I can, yeah, I mean, I can give my view on that. I think it will. I think to a degree it already exists within popular culture. You look at, I think Kanye West recently had taken, taken that sort of technology and applied it in a birthday message for Kim Kardashian, which probably the less said about that, the better. But no, I think it has some really interesting applications. There's a documentary, the name of which escapes me right now, but they had taken that same technology and applied it to survivors of the Holocaust who were able to retell the stories, the experiences that they went through. And it was preserving not just the story, but the emotion was captured as the story was being retold by that individual. And I thought that was incredibly powerful. And to preserve those, the memories, the person, the emotions, and to be able to capture that, and have that available in a museum, and one day in your home for people to interact with, I think is fantastic. And I think that will be becoming more commonplace.
Thank you. Jen, we were talking recently about how at Slalom we love to use movies as inspiration for the possibilities of the future. And one of my favorite movies is Minority Report. And we always talk about that scene where Tom Cruise is walking through the shopping center and he sees all these ads that are personalized to him. They're dynamic and they're talking to him as he's walking through the middle of the shopping center. How far away from that sort of digital out-of-home experience are we? Is that a thing that we're pretty close to enabling today? Are you seeing anything like it?
I love that question because digital out-of-home is my favorite thing right now. It's there's some really cool partnerships that Verizon Media has engaged with. They're not quite Minority Report. They're not quite, but you have to walk. You have to go from point A to point B to get to Minority Report, and I think we're on that path. One of the really cool companies, and I should not have said cool, you guys are gonna like groan when I tell you the name of them, but we've been working with a company called Cooler Screens. And what they do is they basically create the screen. If you think about going into 7-Eleven, and actually Walgreens and Kroger will have 5,000 screens, and there will be 55 million people who see this experience before July. So it's rapidly getting deployed. But if you think about walking into a convenience store and going up to the cooler to get a Coca-Cola or a White Claw or a PBR, whatever your pleasure is, and you open that door will become a screen. That door will become a piece of outdoor. And we've had the gas station experience for a while. We've got digital billboards that happen, but to really engage with somebody right at that moment, immediately we all thought, oh, you can advertise what drink to get. And I was like, well, that's like, open our minds up a little bit more. There can be that experience of what's the lookalike? What is, if I'm an X-age woman going up to buy a White Claw, don't judge. What else do I also want to purchase a SUV, a Lexus SUV, or am I in the market for a new home, or what beauty products do I buy, or what shoes, do I wear Asics or do I wear Nikes? Like, there's a massive amount of personalization that can happen. And that is a place where I'm already engaging. So this isn't like trying to bring customers to a new place. It's engaging with them on their current path. And so I think there's some really, really cool things happening in that whole digital outdoor space that we haven't even thought of today. I would have never said, that 7-Eleven experience was going to be a great place for advertising. And now, it's kind of the sky's the limit. So what's going to be that next screen that we engage with?
You got us thinking about fun new ways to use video a little bit, and I want to try a little interactive activity here. So everybody who's here, panelists, moderator, people in the audience, think about a way that you might like to use video in your industry or in your organization one day. Just take a moment to think about how you could use it creatively to communicate internally, to communicate with your customers, with your partners, to drive brand awareness in different platforms, technologies, and tools that you use in your line of work. And I'd love to start a little conversation. If you were to bring that idea to fruition, what are some of the things that you might need to think about? And I'd love for Jen and Sherry and Adam to weigh in. What do you need to know from an ad platform perspective, from a distribution perspective, from a technology enablement perspective on the back end, from a building your environment perspective? We've got experts that cover the full span here. So who has a fun idea how you might use video? Let's do some brainstorming. And maybe I'll start with a fun one on behalf of our friends at UCLA. knowing that more and more education is happening in a video-enabled world, what might you need to think about? Any ideas from you, Jen, Sherry, or Adam?
I think education is a great one. I think we've seen, again, that was something that was, kind of skyrocketed in 2020. I think, how do you keep the engagement so high that you can keep a 7-year-old engaged and able to not need their parents to step away? Because I think we're hearing great school at home is fantastic, but not when it requires 24/7 oversight for young children. And so I think there's got to be a way for video to be more engaging. And I don't mean engaging like great content. The content is amazing, but more engaging from an interactivity. So I'm not going to step away because I'm engaging, I'm touching, I'm feeling, I'm listening, I'm participating at a different level. And so I think it's how do you, whether it's that 360 experience, the 3D experience, the, there's got to be something there that's a deeper hook.
Yeah, and to add on to education, there's also job training that video is so, we use it today, but just to keep going on this immersive experience. And if we were to use extended reality XR for on the job training, you would be able to recreate, environments for people to do their training. I know that there's a use case in which, divers are learning how to conduct rescue missions, right? In this virtual environment without having to actually go and in the water, all of those things. And so it's, there's just so many applications there that video can provide that realistic situation so that you can do on the job training as well.
Yeah, it's there was a survey that Google did of video users. I think it's called What the World Watched in a Day, the name of the survey. 46%, it was a 12,000 person group that they surveyed, and 46% of the respondents said that they'd used YouTube to learn a new skill or as part of their learning tools. So yeah, I mean, to Sherry and Jen's points, I can absolutely see a scenario in the future where you can combine AR, some of the remote learning capabilities, but also bring that into a real-time scenario where maybe a traditional tradesperson, plumber, for example, who may have had to come and do a call out, could instead walk someone through the process of doing the repair themselves, and starting to approach those very traditional businesses with a completely new mindset.
Yeah, I think telehealth is another one where, I think about my parents still live in Alaska where I grew up, and they live in a small town. And I've been having a lot of discussions with them about healthcare, and that there are only general doctors in their town. And if they need to see a specialist, they're going to need to leave that little town. And they start to get offended that I'm making fun of their town and everything's great. And, we go down this rabbit hole. And if there was an opportunity for my parents to get healthcare via video from a specialist, like you don't have to go to the doctor can come to you via, a video experience or a really rich AR experience, or ultimately surgeries will be happening and it will be that awesome doctor in a different city outside of Alaska, but you'll be able to stay there because a lot of people either don't have the means to travel or they don't want to travel for whatever reason. But I think that breaking down those barriers of you have to go to a specific location to get the one specialist is going to go away if we use video correctly with telehealth.
Another great idea here, using holograms for video collaboration in a world in which we're all working from home. What might we have to consider?
What my hologram is wearing, and if that means that I don't have to worry about all of those things. No, I think it's a great question, and I think we kind of go back to that privacy standpoint, like how much is it a benefit and how much is it invading people's privacy. I think that's something that privacy is a trade-off. There's a payment method there. So for example, if you want me to give you my email address, I'm going to need like 10% off on whatever product I want to buy. Or, you know, there's this trade. And if you want to have your hologram come into my home, if that's not a friend or family member, if that's more, you know, I'm thinking about it from an advertising perspective, that's a big trade. So that's, you've now breached the walls of my home. Even if it's hologram, I'm going to need to be getting some benefit for that. So I think there's some privacy concerns there to consider.
Well, other thoughts?
Not on the, I mean, I guess too, there's one that I want to mention because I saw it the other day and I just thought it was, you know, very cool, which was the need for low latency streaming to enable remote site inspections using Boston Dynamics' new Spot robot. So you know, just being able to drop a single or a fleet of networked robots, in this case, robot dogs, into a harsh environment or into a remote location, and then use 360-degree cameras to, you know, both inspect in high detail and, you know, streaming back 4K and 8K streams to enable users to then zoom in to those sections of video that are important to see the detail on a readout, on a gauge. And, you know, and low latency is very important there to have that, you know, real-time interaction in a, you know, in a delicate environment. So that was one that may not have been in the chat, but I thought personally was very cool. Every time I see one of those Boston Dynamics videos, so I wanted to bring that up as being relevant to us. But I think the other thing as well, we talk a lot about some of these new technologies. You know, we're creating a lot of video, and it's maybe a slightly less sexy, more sort of, you know, back-end infrastructure part of it. But I've spoken to a number of people in the past, you know, startups and even sort of startups within companies who start small, create content, and just, you know, store that content on a hard drive or, you know, in object storage in the cloud, and don't build the management layer around that content early on. And it becomes so much more difficult to do that at a later date when you're, you know, now suddenly in your growth phase and at the point where it's hard to track down that content and index it, you know, whether you're indexing it with machine learning, you know, object recognition, creating labels for that content. So I would say, you know, in any of these scenarios where you are starting out creating new content, it's incredibly important to get that asset management of that content in place from the very start. And as we touched on earlier, the, you know, cloud providers, either through their marketplace in partnership with you know, SaaS vendors who are providing these solutions, or with some of the cloud providers directly, there are solutions out there that can easily start small, you know, pay-as-you-go services and grow with you. So that's, you know, just coming from some, you know, sort of experiences that I've seen.
Yeah, gosh, well said. I actually believe that right now there's a ton of video being created that has more utility than we realize, because there's so much being created every single day. We just haven't really thought about all of the ways that we can use that video yet. If you think about all of the times you could use something like a little GIF to communicate your point so much faster, part of making that little video clip useful is the metadata and the management around it and being able to distribute it and get it in the fingertips of people. And I believe that the fact that I've thought of that means that there's probably a whole bunch of other smart people out there that are thinking about it and trying to figure out how to monetize that opportunity one day. I see one more really great idea that I just can't pass up here from our friend Doug Getz at Fox. He was saying, what about the economic democratization of high production value? What would we need to think about in order to enable that? And then, like, what do we do with all that high quality video once we have it?
So that's a fantastic question. The democratization of it. I mean, what we can do with it, I think I almost answered with my previous question. You know, how we go about tracking ownership of that content, ensuring that people are paid fairly for it. You know, there are some interesting solutions out there with you know, distributed blockchain technology solutions, which at that point it almost sounds like I'm just putting buzzwords together. But you know, having a way of, you know, having an immutable record of you know, of the content that you create, and being able to you know, track back the ownership and the payments throughout its entire life. There's a company called Alluvio, who are doing some interesting work in that space, yeah, I mean, there isn't. Interestingly enough, it could also tie into the deep fakes point earlier. You know, with the right sort of industry, you know, cross-industry collaboration, you know, between creation tools, the playback technologies, you know, finding a way to ensure that ownership data passes through that entire chain, you know, would be one way to potentially flag up, you know, deepfake content that doesn't have validated ownership rights, or, you know, you can see that it deviates, you know, from that ownership chain. That would be my answer to that.
Love that. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about blockchain applications in media and entertainment. I think there is a very bright future for that technology. We could probably have a whole session just on that.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of exciting things happening in that space, and it's got a long way to grow as well. You're right.
Yes. I want to go back to some questions in the feed here. I see Bentley Au has a question about, how do you think video will enhance or replace the live entertainment experience? What do you each hear about that in your line of business, and how are you thinking about enabling that sort of area of opportunity?
I think both Sherry and I talked about streaming at the beginning, and you know, for a long time from an advertising perspective, it was like, oh my gosh, advertising is going away because everything's on demand. And it was like, no, there's always going to be a live experience that's desired for many different events, or, you know, sports is a big one, but there's also award shows and things that are more seasonal or more timely. And the stream process, like the whole experience of streaming, if you think about, there used to be just one pipe that came into people's house and that was it, and it was Thursday nights at 7 o'clock you watched Friends, and that's not the experience at all anymore. It's every single person has an individual ID, and you can have 5 people in a house and you all have 5 different streams and 5 different experiences that are happening, and the customization that can happen at that point, and the personalization is, you know, limitless. So being able to be relevant to people, I think, exponentially makes streaming more valuable.
Yeah, you know, I hopefully someday we'll be able to have in-person events. We'll be able to attend sporting events. We'll be able to attend concerts, you know, all of those things. But if you guys recall, before the pandemic, if you looked at the audience in the crowd, all of them were holding smartphones, right? They all had these extra devices. And what that actually does is provide you another screen, another opportunity to provide content. And I do think that in the future, what you'll be seeing is that your experience, even if you're attending in person, let's say a concert, to have additional content, behind the scenes content, on stage cameras, right? With live feeds, so that you can experience all of these different things in that for that event. And so I think that, you know, video, once again, is an opportunity to enhance your experience. You know, I think that, you know, for some people, I know, like my sister who doesn't like being around crowds, it will replace that experience for her. So I think for a lot of folks, you can still have that feeling that you're at this live event and experiencing content, that kind of thing. So I think that there's just a ton of opportunities, and we're just kind of at the start of how, we're going to be engaging, with all of these different places, being a fan, from a sports perspective, or from a music perspective, all of these things, your experience can be really, really enhanced with all of these opportunities that we have with video.
Yes. So we've been talking a little bit about all of these different opportunities for video. And today, the major ways that we monetize video, of course, are through advertising and through distribution fees. But with technologies like blockchain and with new video experiences coming about, like shopping through video, which Jen mentioned earlier, it seems like there might be some new ways to monetize video. What do you think the next great ways to monetize video might be? Will they replace advertising or distribution fees? Will they be in addition to? What sort of thoughts do you all have in that area?
I think it'll be in addition to. I think there's, so many variations of monetization, both on the supply side and on the demand side. So there needs to be the space, and then there needs to be the willingness to participate in that space. And I think it's twofold. And as those two sides come together and start to work more seamlessly, I think that you won't, the monetization will become a little bit more authentic. And whether that's, native advertising, whether that's more retail media, I think that the monetization will get a little bit more sophisticated. Right now, it's a little bit clunky.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of interesting technologies that are allowing more seamless, personalized product placement in content, that in sort of post-produced content, so content that's already been delivered. Technologies that are able to use computer vision to detect a scene where it's feasible to dynamically insert a billboard or a poster or a can, and target that to the person, to the end user that's viewing that, and I think that provides a monetization avenue for services where some traditional advertising maybe doesn't fit. Traditional online advertising doesn't fit. So I think that's going to be an interesting, interesting approach. Interesting to see that technology more broadly implemented.
We've talked a ton today about personalization. It's come up along the way, so I can't help but ask, with cookies going away and people leaning into privacy and their ability to manage what you know about them, how will we create some of these personalized experiences and be able to target and provide information that will engage people in a way that makes them appreciate advertising instead of trying to figure out how to get around it?
It's an awesome question. I love it. I think the more relevant you can be, ultimately, as kind of an advertiser for life, I want people to actually request it. And there's so many cool things that can be done. I've always said, I want to choose. I think choice is really, really important, and giving people the ability to say, these are the 10 advertisers that can advertise to me this month or this year. And maybe I'm only going to choose 9, and I'm going to leave like a grab bag for number 10, because, then you can look at the 9 I've selected and then say, oh, based on these 9, we're going to advertise these new things to Jen that she's never seen before. Kind of like your Genius Music, the Genius Music button, or a Pandora or a Spotify or a recommends. But if you really could put the power in the hands of the consumer and let them decide, this is the advertising I want to see, it becomes so much more valuable, because those advertisers have to work harder to be selected, but the quality of the engagement is so much higher. And I think then we get back to the conversation today around video. If I knew that consumers had to choose me and I couldn't just slap stuff in front of them because they're being forced to look at it, my creative would be better, the content would be better, the video would be higher quality. We would be using all of those awesome technologies that we're talking about today, because the power would be in the hands of the consumer.
On this note around personalization, I saw this really interesting article show up in a newsletter in my inbox, I think yesterday or this morning. The headline was "The Face Race." And it was this big moment for me when I realized if more video is being taken than ever before, our faces are pretty readily available. Your face is really a thing that identifies who you are. Right now, all of the ways that companies get to know and understand people is mostly by hacking your information on the back end, kind of cobbling it together and then figuring out, based on things that we can deduce about you, what do we think you might be interested in? But if all of a sudden all of our faces are everywhere and video is more omnipresent and it gets easier to understand who you are, what might that mean for video experiences and personalization?
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting perspective. I hadn't even thought about that, Erica. So it's a really interesting perspective. I think that, you know, the approach that we've been taking in terms of providing personalization or personalized experiences, and this is just from a marketing perspective, you know, it's really around looking at the behaviors. And so not necessarily tying to a particular person, like me, Sherry Park, you know, that kind of thing, knowing it's me, but knowing that this entity who I am went to this website, you know, looked at this thing, is interested in that, and then targeting that person based off that profile. And so, you know, that in general, I think that there was a question about how does Facebook know what I want to have advertised for me? Basically, they're looking at your behavior across what you Googled, you know, kind of all of those things. And then they serve that up. Now they do that in a way that it's not tied to you in particular. They don't know that it's you, you know, Gordon, it's not, you know, this Gordon Campbell did this. It's basically just, you are an entity. And then they say, okay, these are all the things that entity did. So now serve that entity that advertising. So that's kind of how it works in general. But I think that, you know, we're kind of in a world where there's just data everywhere. You know, it's like there's so much data around you and everybody's collecting it and everybody, you know, kind of knows that about you. So I think that those are the things that, you know, as privacy and, you know, concerns, you know, continue to grow, and we have to think about, you know, how we protect people's privacy, all of those things, that is going to affect how we go about and personalize experiences. And so, you know, for me and Jen, who are working in marketing and who are trying to, you know, target people and provide these personalized experiences, it's just an additional challenge that we have to think about kind of moving forward.
Definitely. Adam, what are some of the technological capabilities that you are just dying to come to the video world to enable some of the things that your business stakeholders probably ask for all the time? And I'm sure some of these things are hard to enable. Like, what are the big hurdles? What's coming? What do you wish you had today?
Oh, that is a fantastic question. I won't give any examples that directly relate to business stakeholders, lest I be held to a timeline or a roadmap. But I mean, one of the things that I'm actually, you know, personally excited about, and I think will be a real enabler for some of these experiences that we've talked about, and Sherry actually touched on it a little bit earlier, is spatial audio. So the ability to recreate either specific environments or, you know, give a more true audio, more immersive audio experience on headphones and on single speakers without the need for a huge, overly complicated, you know, speaker setup in your house. I mean, the headphone market today is a $26 billion market. So, I mean, it's absolutely ripe for innovation and growth, and I think it will, you know, it really adds to the immersive experience. You know, we talked about being able to take content from backstage at a show, and how that, you know, really adds value and adds another level to the experience. And if you can layer, you know, a spatial audio experience over the top of that, so that you can hear maybe the conversation between your two favorite artists, you know, backstage, and feel like you're really truly there, I think that's going to be an incredibly powerful, you know, technology and you know, an incredibly powerful experience.
You know, we've got some Live Nation folks here. I think Adam just planted seeds for some experiences he would like to see come to life soon.
Sorry. Sorry, Erica. No, I would, this is something that, I think could be really interesting, but real-time video translation. We've all been using video conferencing now over the past year to communicate, and how amazing would it be if real-time we could get translation so that we can connect even more with people around the world. So that is something that I'd love to see.
Remember, I think I saw a version of this demoed at a Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference a handful of years ago, and I'm sure it's still in development because gosh, do we all need it. I know my colleagues that work in other countries generally speak multiple languages, but Americans are the worst at this. We tend to speak no more than 1.5 languages. So hopefully this is something that comes soon and gives us all the opportunity to learn quickly. Data is like oil, but one day video is going to be like oil, and it's money slipping through your fingertips today if we don't figure out how we might use it and how to start planning to be able to use it in the future. So I hope this stimulated some fun, creative thoughts for you. I look forward to seeing what you all do with video in the future. Last but not least, I hope you'll attend our upcoming virtual events. On April 22nd, we have our next event around the state of the Socal jobs market, and we have some terrific leaders from Korn Ferry as well as from UCLA to talk about the future of the Socal jobs market, what it means for technology, different skills that you and others in your organization may want. On May 6th, we have how the consulting services landscape is changing and what it means for you. So whether you're in professional services or whether you buy professional services, this should be a fun one to figure out how this landscape is changing, how to buy, how to prepare your organization in professional services to pivot. And on June 2nd, our Spring Quarter Tech Bootcamp Demo Day. And Rafi, would you like to give a plug for the amazing YTP students from UCLA who participate in our YTP Bootcamp?
Sure. We run the tech bootcamps twice a year, spring quarter and fall quarter. And there's one running right now, and it ends on, so the students participate for 6 weeks. They participate in these boot camps to solve a social good problem. And this boot camp, we're focusing on 4 areas: clean tech, smart city tech, health tech, and ed tech. So some of the conversations today I'm going to feed some of that into our students to see if they can inspire them to come up with some ideas and be able to solve those ideas. We have 28 students. Students are coached by industry leaders. And then on June 2nd, we will have a demo day where the student teams are going to be basically demoing their solutions to a set of judges from the industry, from academia, and from the public sector. So I would like to invite you all to attend. There's more information on our website.
Thank you, Rafi. I hope to see you again at another Innovate at UCLA event. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.